We all love to laugh, right? But have you ever really stopped to think about what makes something funny? I mean, really funny. It's not just about a good punchline. Today, we're going to break down the anatomy of comedy, looking at it not just as a feeling, but as this incredibly powerful and ancient way of telling stories. So let's just start right there with the biggest question of all. What is comedy? On the surface, it seems so simple. It's just stuff that makes you laugh. But is that really the whole story? Not even close. You see, it's so much more than that. At its very core, comedy is a structure. It's a specific, predictable way of building a story, one that has a very particular and usually very satisfying shape to it. To really get it, let's put it next to its famous cousin, tragedy. Think about it. A tragedy usually starts with some kind of order, and then it just spirals down into chaos and disaster. Well, comedy does the complete opposite. It starts in a mess. We're talking conflict, confusion, people getting the wrong idea, and its entire job is to move upward toward resolution and harmony. The whole genre is defined by that optimistic climb. So here's a great way to think about it. Comedy is a genre that uses all of these fun tools, humor, wit, satire, to poke fun at our own silliness, our mistakes, our follies. But here's the most important part. It always pushes toward a happy ending, a resolution, people making up, or just a moment where we all kind of get it. So where did this amazing blueprint even come from? It definitely wasn't invented overnight. So let's take a quick trip back in time and see how the DNA of comedy was written, bit by bit, over hundreds and hundreds of years. All right, let's follow the breadcrumbs. It really kicks off in ancient Greece, where comedy was this razor-sharp tool for political satire. Then the Romans come along and give us these hilarious, plot-driven farces and the stock characters we still see today. You fast forward to the Elizabethan era, and you've got Shakespeare mastering witty dialogue and these wonderfully tangled romantic plots. And then, by the 18th century, comedy gets a whole new job, teaching moral lessons to the growing middle class. You can just see how each era added another layer to what comedy could do. So how does comedy actually pull all this off? Well, it's not magic, it's a craft. And like any good craft, it has a toolkit. So let's pry open the lid and see what's inside. What are the essential devices that make it all work? And here they are, the greatest hits. You've got your stock characters, the clever servant who's running circles around their boss, or the totally clueless lover. You've got timeless tricks like mistaken identities and disguises, a classic. And then you have the verbal fireworks, the witty banter, the wordplay, exaggeration, and of course, irony and satire. These are literally the building blocks for just about every comedy you've ever seen. Let's just zoom in on one of the most powerful tools in the box, dramatic irony. This is that amazing feeling you get when you know something that a character on screen doesn't. You see the banana peel they're about to slip on, and that gap between what you know and what they know, that creates this perfect blend of humor and suspense, and it pulls you right into the story. And so much of that humor comes from this one simple, brilliant idea: the gap between our public face and our private self. Comedy just loves to expose that difference between how we're supposed to act and what we're really thinking or doing behind closed doors. It's all about shining a light on hypocrisy, and that's a theme as old as comedy itself. So all these tools, the characters, the mix-ups, the witty lines, they're all pulling in the same direction. They're all driving toward one single ultimate goal: restoring order. The story has to end with things being put right again. This usually looks like a wedding or a big moment of forgiveness. Some symbol that shows society is back in harmony. At its heart, comedy is just fundamentally optimistic. But obviously, comedy is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Over the centuries, it's developed all these different flavors and forms. So let's think of this next section as a kind of tasting menu of the genre. So for example, let's just compare two fascinating styles. On one side, you've got Restoration comedy. It's cynical, it's sophisticated, and it's full of these witty attacks on how people behave in high society. But then, on the other side, you have Sentimental comedy, which was all about teaching you a moral lesson and making you feel something. It's the same genre, but they are using humor for completely different reasons. And of course, those styles were built on foundations that were even older. You have the political jabs of the ancient Greeks and the brilliant, tangled love stories and disguises that Shakespeare absolutely perfected back in the Elizabethan era. The variety is just incredible.
And all of this brings us to our final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. Because for all its fun and games, comedy is actually very serious business. It is about so much more than just getting a laugh.
I mean, just think about it. Yes, entertainment is one piece of the pie. Of course it is. But look at everything else comedy is doing. It's giving us social commentary. It's offering moral lessons. It's giving us psychological insight into ourselves. And it's providing that deeply satisfying feeling of closure. The laughter is really just the sugar that helps all this important medicine go down.
And its role as social critique is maybe its most powerful function. Comedy gets to hold up a mirror to society and point out our flaws, but in a way that feels safe. It exposes hypocrisy, injustice, and just plain foolishness, but it does it with a wink, not a punch. It's incredibly powerful critique disguised as a good time. So if we boil it all down, you can really see the whole process in 3 simple steps. First, comedy reflects our world and our behavior back at us. Second, it critiques our flaws using humor. And finally, it resolves the mess and restores a sense of order and balance. It's a complete, satisfying, and really important cycle. And that brings us right to the end of our little tour, but it leaves us with a really important question to think about. If comedy is a mirror for society, then what are the comedies you're watching today? The sitcoms, the movies, the stand-up specials, what are they telling us about our world? Right here, right now.